Accademia is creativity, Italian innovation.
Passione.
Inspiring.
Una famiglia un po' pazza.
Miraculous.
Heritage and future of design.
Famiglia.
Energetic.
Innovativa.
Sorprendente.
Qualità.
My academic family.
Bellezza e tanto amore.
Prorompenza della libertà creativa.
Rigore. Creativa, incontournable.
L'Accademia coltiva talenti.
Hello again, and welcome to Accademia Costume Moda in Rome. And here we are again for another webinar this week with my friend and colleague Antonio Mancinelli.
Hello to everyone, and thank you, Adrian, for inviting me. Hello to everyone.
My pleasure. Where are you today? You're in Milan?
I'm in Milan, yes, unfortunately, because...
No, it's lovely.
Oh, yes.
I love Milan.
Thanks. But I come from Rome. I live in Milan for 30 years, so I'm off and off. I love Rome and Milano.
Okay. Well, before I introduce you, I just want to say that how I admire you as someone who speaks your mind and talks about fashion within a really great context and a lot of knowledge. I was educated, as I think I told you before, by Colin McDowell, who is a great thinker of fashion. And before he was a writer and a journalist, he was actually working here in Rome as a fashion designer for Laura Biagiotti, as he would say. So people who speak their mind and have a lot of interest in culture, basically that's what we're always looking for within our students, people who have an informed, unique opinion about the world and the world of fashion. So I think it would be nice to start off by talking about your journey, your personal journey, which actually started here at Accademia Costume Moda, and how you found your way into discussing fashion and social criticism.
Okay. Thank you for your kind words. I hope to deserve them because I feel very responsible for this judgment, because I admire you, but we can go on and say, I admire you, you admire me, it's okay. And my journey as a fashion journalist and a fashion critic began in Accademia of Costume Moda in Roma, maybe in 3 BC, I don't remember. Many years.
Were there still dinosaurs walking around?
Yes, I was one of them. And I was the first journalist to get out from Accademia. But I'm a journalist just because I attended the courses of Accademia of Costume Moda in Roma. And maybe the culture that I had in Accademia obviously helped me in my career, because I began very early in writing for a newspaper called the Corriere della Sera. For the Roman edition, the edition of the city. And at the same time, in the morning, I went to Accademia. And thanks to Accademia, I met one teacher who proposed me to write for Corriere della Sera.
Who's that? Who is that?
Andrea Purgatori. Andrea Purgatori is one of the best known reporter in Italy, but at that time, we were in 1980. Yes, at that time he was the chief. He was the boss of the news of the city, and he had a very good idea as a teacher in Accademia to give to a guy, to a man, all the part about the fashion shows. We have to remember that at that time in Roma, there were the really high fashion shows with names like Valentino, Ferré, Capucci, and so on. So it's true. My career began. I have to say that my career began with Accademia, and I'm always grateful to the culture that Accademia gave to me, because as I always say to my students now, because from 85 it's 36 years, is knowledge is power. The more things you know, the more tools you have to judge fashion, world, society, and whatever. So my education in Accademia, even the technical things, were so useful tools for me in writing and becoming a fashion critic. So thanks Accademia, because it's very important to know that more things, because fashion is the really serious matter. Sometimes there are still some people who consider it frivolous or superficial. But if you want to write seriously about fashion, you have to know something about mass psychology, sociology, economic, and how tailoring, how the things are done, and many things, sociology, and even what the desire of a global society. So for this reason, I'm very grateful for all the news that I learned before in Accademia and after during my career. But I was a good student in Accademia.
You're sure?
I did not become a very good designer, but Accademia was important for me to choose, because I think that each of us has to have the courage to recognize his or her own limits, and at the same time to put the spotlight on your really capabilities. And your real capabilities.
Capabilities, yep, absolutely.
And your capabilities only with the majority of tools you have. So I was very good in writing. Maybe I was not so good in
the drawing.
Yes, to tell the truth. So, but my career began with Accademia. I remember that time with lots of enthusiasm and lots of joy, because I studied with a very good teacher, and Mrs. Piamma Lanzara and Mrs. Rosanna Pistolese. So
wow.
It's a long story, yes.
Yeah. So you were here at the time of our founder, Rosanna Pistolese.
Yes.
Yeah, that must have been amazing.
She was very demanding, but she was, she was really a genius. She was absolutely a genius in intuition and having a vision of the world. She taught me to have a vision on the global world in which fashion is a part of. So that's still my method to face the fashion and fashion world. Sorry.
No, I was just going to continue. Sorry.
No, you know that now we the fashion journalists are yesterday over the digital fashion, the first completely digital shows in Milan. It was a very interesting experience, but at the same time, it was very stimulating for me to see this new kind of communication with all my culture that I have until now.
That's the part of my second question.
Okay.
But let's just stop there a moment because I want to know the rest of the journey. So you were studying here, you started writing for Corriere della Sera, correct? Yep,
Yeah.
It's a really famous, most important newspaper in Italy. And then how did you end up where you are today at Marie Claire, for example?
I wrote for lots of magazines. It was very, but always writing about fashion. I remember with a lot of nostalgia, with a lot of sweetness. 10 years that I spent writing on fashion in a very, very political magazine called Diario. And the editor-in-chief was so intelligent to ask me, please write something about fashion in politics today. So write something about fashion, I don't know, in economic, in the way the people want to appear in different fields. So it was very important for me. And in 2005, Marie Claire called me as the senior editor for all the part, for all the feature part. And sometimes I want to write because I want to keep my space to write. And for me, it was very interesting to begin to write for the website to marieclaire.it. So you can go because it's free. I'm sorry that's in Italian, but you can put it on Google Translator because it was a new way to communicate. And it's very important for me to be always to live in the present, even if I'm old now. But I love to live in the present because judging fashion forces you to live in the present and to understand, to try to decrypt all the signals arising from society and from the world. So decoding
what you see, decoding the collections.
Yeah. Thanks, my English is very poor. So.
No, your English is wonderful. Never apologize. Let's just communicate without apologies. Yeah. That's my theory. Let's go on to how you're seeing
coffee. Yes,
you have your coffee. Let's talk about how you're seeing fashion now, because we've got Milan Fashion Week digital at the moment. So how do you feel, one, about the medium, how we've changed, and how do you feel about what you've seen on the catwalk? Because now we're living this COVID pandemic fashion mode where we don't know if we're being creative, we don't know if we're being repetitive, we don't know if we just want comfort. How do you see the design houses and designers and brands coping with the world that we have in front of us now?
Okay, I have to say two things. Personally, I find that in generally speaking, the pandemic will be, in Italian you used to say spartiacque, in English is watershed. Between the past and the future. And in this we can put everything, but especially the communication of fashion and the fashion too, because especially in the last shows, there were very nice shows, very intelligent shows. Italian designer had to face this new kind of communication. And yesterday I read an article of a friend of mine who's a very good fashion critic. His name is Angelo Placavento, and he wrote for a very important economic newspaper. So it's much more on the economy and not on the aesthetic. And he says that maybe all the big houses were obliged not only to do not only to do, film the shows, but filming with fashion. So to build a new narrative about fashion, and I think that the movie, the fashion movie, are here to stay because for me it's the first time in history that it's possible for every one of us, you and your friend in Australia and your mother in London or whatever, to see what was really exclusive until 2 years ago, until 1.5 years ago. So they were in a certain time an operation of to democratize fashion, because everyone could see the shows, even the high fashion shows. And it was very important. And the second thing I want to say that personally, I'm sorry, but I'm not so nostalgic of the old ritual of the shows, because there is they were very exclusive. You have to get the invitation, and after that,
queuing up for hours,
lots of rows, first row, second row,
Yeah.
and lots of. I have to admit that many colleagues were against this kind of digital shows, because every one of us is in front row. But I think this is a sign of contemporary times in which we have to build a story, we have to build a narration, we have to build a storytelling around clothes, because fashion is no more only around clothes, but it's around a lifestyle, is around a thinking, is about a philosophy, is about new values to transmit, to communicate through fashion, like, diversity or inclusivity, or new things, or new tips. They are very, very important in fashion today. If you think about, all the black designers who are under the spotlight, and you link this with the Black Lives Matter events, it's very important to understand how society is changing, and fashion has to follow the society, and vice versa. So it's very interesting for me, and I'm really, really happy for that. I think that the digital show are here to stay, not to be substituted with after the vaccine, after all that, with the physical show, with physical shows, because in this moment, we are on the same level, and so we have some problems, because I ask myself, maybe I'm not so useful to the people to understand fashion. Maybe fashion criticism is no more useful. And I asked on my Instagram account to my follower, are you still interested or not in having someone to help you in explaining fashion? And all of them say, yes, please. But at the same time, all of us are watcher of this. We are watching this. We are watching these shows. So I think it's a real stimulating moment, with all the respect for the people who lost their lives, with all the respect for the people who were hurt from this horrible virus. But I think this is a very important change of codes in communicating fashion and in doing fashion too.
Well, I really appreciate your optimism. I think that's great. I think you've got to look at things that we need change sometimes.
I'm not optimistic. Sorry, Adrian. I'm
You
realistic.
sound optimistic, but you sound optimistic. You're taking it as a positive point.
I'm realistic, because at the same time, a Chinese guy an Arabic girl, I don't know, a Japanese woman, or I don't know, a Russian man could see the same thing, and it's very important because it opens to a lot of possibilities. Think about the new marketing, the new role of social media manager. But all these things intertwined together could be a good way to understand the world of today. So I'm not for nature. I'm really pessimistic. But
Okay.
in this case, I'm optimistic because I think that really we needed something new even before the pandemic.
Excellent. Okay, well, I see that because I'm optimistic, I read everything you're saying as being positive and optimistic person. That's how I read you. I would say, however, that I thought that fashion was moving more interesting in the theme of communication before the pandemic anyway. Clothes were looking a little bit, the designers were doing what designers do, but the part of communication has been revolutionized.
Yes.
And it completely changed in the past 10 years before the pandemic. I think
Yes.
it's just accelerated the pace of what we're doing digitally.
Absolutely. But we have to face another thing that's not so good. That during the first lockdown in Italy, especially in Italy, I don't know in the other countries, many designers made promises. We have to slow down. We have to use less. We have to be. We did not have to do 6 collections each year, and they may be not so convinced now because another problem is the overproduction.
Yeah.
Because the shows were fantastic, but now when I was young, when I began, we had just 4 shows, 6 shows each year, 2 for women, 2 for menswear, and for the houses who did it, 2 of high fashion. Now we have 8. 10 collection each year, and the capsule collection and the collaboration with the celebrity of the influencer. There is a problem of overproduction, and I have to admit that in this case, the communication is very ahead, but the all the system is a little bit lazy.
I couldn't agree more with you. When I started hearing the ideas that, yes, we're going to we're going to do less, we're going to do this, we will have less collections, I thought it would just take one big brand to do the whole lot and everybody will just follow like sheep again.
Yes.
And I'm a bit worried this is going to happen. What we see that they are blurring the edges, and that we have men on women's wear collections and women in men's wear collection, and also people that are not identifying as one or the other are in the collections too. I still don't get why we're having to have a men's week and a woman's week. Why on earth are we doing that? Making people look at everything twice when actually they're all just clothes on people.
I'm absolutely agree with you, even because lots of houses, even big houses like Burberry and Gucci, are doing the co-ed collection, in which you can see menswear, and women's wear together. And I think it's a good thing for 2 reasons. First, because they don't have to spend so much money, and each designer has just only one brain, so why separate menswear from women's wear? And the second thing is much more philosophical, that maybe today is not a case to separate, to putting into separate wardrobe what we consider women's wear, what we consider menswear.
Yeah.
Because we are going to a fashion dimension. This is always more and more genderless, because especially for the young people, the Z generation people, it's not so important if something or some items are considered for men or for women. The important thing that I feel at ease with these clothes or with this, I don't know, makeup or with this hair or I don't know. And I think that now it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if something is created for a guy or a girl as we intended 30 or 40 years ago, because in the 90s it was 30 years ago. To me, it seemed yesterday, but
Don't remind me.
And I think that I look a lot to the new consumer, to the young consumer, and I see a lot of guys using makeup or a lot of girls stealing items from boyfriend. No.
Who?
Wow. Stealing items from the boyfriend's wardrobe, and it's good because they are building their own style.
But this has always happened. It's not this generation.
Absolutely.
I mean, I've been doing it for 40, 50 years, whatever. I've never passed a day without wearing makeup since I was about 15
Yes,
years
absolutely.
old. So it's not terribly new. But
if you think about I don't know the peacock revolution at the beginning of the 70s and the end of the 60s in London. You are from London. You are from London.
I'm from Wales.
Oh, sorry.
I'm officially a Welsh sheep.
Okay. But think about the first David Bowie or Pianino. So they played with the role of feminine and masculine. And I think that there's a new time to experiment, to play with this new kind of role, because now we have lots of new subjects like female empowerment, toxic masculinity you have to deal with. So fashion can help us. And the important thing is to know toxic masculinity and female empowerment and all the political discussion around that to understand the new fashion.
And I think it's about giving choices to people. It's not that we want to take away from one gender and give it to the other. Isn't it about just sharing and letting people have a choice about what they want?
I think that thanks to the magazine, from the 80s until now, I think the new consumer has built a new culture, a personal culture, and a subjectivity about themselves, about what we really want not to wear, but how we want and the way we want to appear to the other people.
Yeah.
According your, I don't know, your mood of the day, according your personal taste, according your, I don't know, the way you feel yourself in that day. So there's no more. When I was young, and my mother has 3 outfits each day, one for the morning, one for the afternoon, and one for the evening. And now you can use, I don't know, evening gown in the morning.
So this is what you're doing?
on a guy, and that's fantastic. I saw before the pandemic, I went to Corriere, and I saw lots of guys, lots of boys dressed with beautiful women's gowns, women's clothes, and they were fantastic. They look very, very good.
Yeah.
I think that this is a new change in society that we have to face. And I think that fashion industry is beginning to know this kind of new generation. I don't know if I can do some name, but if you think about Gucci, Now, if you go on the website of Gucci, you have women's wear, menswear, and MM, and there are a selection of items that are apt. They are good for guys.
Everybody. Well,
Everybody.
actually, I'm wearing, you can't see this, but I'm wearing Random Identities today, which is a brand which is about people. It's just that you buy different sizes. You don't buy male or female. So
Yes.
it was our friend Barbara Trevich that told me about this brand. And so she made me get into Random Identities.
Which brand?
Random Identities.
I love Random Identities.
I'm wearing Random Identities. I'm very random.
Even because it's done by my close friend Stefano Pilati.
Yeah.
And he has a lot of sizes. So
great sizes.
Yes.
For everybody, which I love.
And Stefano, who's an intelligent designer, he was used to design Prada and Saint Laurent, and very bourgeois, very conservative brand. And after that, he went to live in Berlin. And this experience to live in Berlin, he still lives in Berlin, made change his mindset. And Random Identities is really, really interesting as an experiment of genderless fashion, not so expensive, at the same time very original. But I have a lot of things because you can find, I don't know, beautiful military pants. I bought military pants, or beautiful sweaters. This is not Random Identities.
And the heels, you can buy the heels. And
yes, the heels.
They're not girls or boys. The heels are just for people.
Yes,
so you can have heels,
so why not?
which are great.
So I find very interesting that it's designed and thought by a very cultured man, a very intelligent, smart, brilliant, who make thinking about what's fashion today. And it's not just for the young people. It's for
No.
Because we are speaking about men and women, but we have to speak about age.
Thank you. I will never give up dressing. I will never give up on
we have
living my fashion.
We have to speak about body positivity, because we were used to see this model very thin, and now, luckily, on the catwalk, not in the shop, on the catwalk, you can find even a plus size model. So, in a certain way, I think that fashion is facing a new change in society because it comes from the society. This new question, these new subjects, and fashion has to follow them.
So that's an interesting point, that fashion is following society now, and fashion doesn't dictate anymore.
It's
strange. It can try.
It's strange because I think that in this moment the fashion system is a little bit confused, because it could happen that one thing, I don't know. I'm sorry if I'm saying lots of names, if I'm dropping so many names.
I think people like to hear the names. I've got a feeling people like to hear the names.
I don't know why all the people know that my close friend Damna Gvasalia, who's doing a great job in Balenciaga, just for the Triple S sneakers, and the clothes are magnificent, are fantastic, but they sell a lot of sneakers. So, or people, it's going crazy for the Telfar Clements. Telfar Clements is one of the most anti-fashion system. Is black, is gay, is American, and Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez wear a bag in eco leather by Telfar Clements, and all the people in the world bought that bag. So it's strange because sometimes there are some items, some accessories, some I don't know, one kind of T-shirt, one kind of shirt, one kind of skirt, but it's very strange because people now is using fashion to build their own identities.
Absolutely.
Their own identities and their own appearance. So they want to pick up from different houses, from different labels, and beyond this, there is lots of new things. I think about when I was young, the word vintage, it did not exist. We used to say in Italian, usato is used,
Yeah.
with a very negative acception. And now vintage, we should say vintage because it's a French word. It's a French word coming from the wine, the culture. But vintage now is a reality, and we have some label who are doing fake vintage. It's crazy, but it's a very important thing. It's a new thing because lots of young people use vintage clothes. Think about all the website, Vestiaire Collective. There is a lot, or the Real. They are selling a lot of vintage, and this is all these things together give you the portrait of a society in constant changing and changing and changing. And that's the reason why I'm never bored with fashion. Sometimes I can't stand the fashion people. I don't love fashion people, but
you love the fashion.
I've always been loving fashion because, it's the perfect barometer of the society. It's the most important mirror of the society, always. It's for me, it's much more important than, I don't know, a documentary or reading an article about the economic. If you saw some shows, you can understand what's happening, and maybe, like Coco Chanel said, every one of us knows Mademoiselle Coco Chanel, and she said, le génie de la mode, c'est le prévoir. The genius of fashion is prevedere, is foresight. It's like to make a forecast. And if you think, you know better than me, that the designer who had great success in the last year were the designer who had, as you say perfectly, a vision, not only of beautiful clothes, but vision of a complete world, of a complete aesthetic universe.
You were talking before about vintage, and I think it's a cultural thing because when I was growing up in London in the early 80s, we had a big store in Covent Garden called Flip, and it was American vintage, and we would use that to dress and disguise ourselves. And then I was going to Paris as well, and I had a friend who worked Didio Ludo in the Palais Royal.
Yes.
And so I was going to Didio Ludo in the early 80s and trying on Chanel suits and Givenchy gowns and exploring that side of couture through vintage. So I was quite aware of vintage when I was growing up. But I think it's an Italian thing that you had so much newness here.
Okay.
You went looking towards vintage.
You are perfectly right. Because now I'm smiling because a friend of mine, maybe you know him, he is still one of the most important sociologists in the world. His name is Ted Polemus. And he wrote this beautiful book in the 90s, foresighting the future, called Supermarket of Style. And we are friends, and he told me, sorry, Antonio, why in Milano all the young people look like in uniform in the same way, while in London, each young, I don't know, made by himself or herself, tie-and-dye T-shirt, and they write and they put They put patches on the jeans before Dolce Gabbana.
Yeah. Well, when I was growing up as a fashion student, I was dressing myself every day to go to school. I mean, every day I would make something new.
And that's a real Italian characteristic, not a problem, but a characteristic.
I used to say the Italians used to open the magazine all at the same page in those days.
Yes.
It was like, oh, we've all opened the page. This is the page of the magazine this time. This is where we are. And of course, in London, we were rebelling about that. We were all discovering new identities for ourselves constantly. And I think now we've sort of all come back around and we're looking at the industry perhaps more in a global sense. I need to come back a little bit, because we're about to run out of time. We need to start taking some questions. Just because you're in Milan, I'm in Rome, but we're opening a new campus in Milan, and you are one of our scientific directors with Sera for the new course. I don't know if you can tell us about what will you be teaching? Everything.
Okay, I hope. I'm very shy. So
yeah, very shy. Yeah,
I'm very honored to be with Sera. Sera is a very close friend. She's so talented. She's so talented colleague in finding new names and new authors. Not only designer in fashion. And I don't want to use the word teach. I want to establish a conversation with the students about some teams trying to put my experience in not only in writing, but even in judging a fashion show, in judging what a designer is doing in that moment, because it's not true that we always say, oh, that those shows were fantastic. No, maybe sometimes could be not fantastic.
It's about analysis more than beauty, perhaps. It's critical analysis.
You have to motivate your critic with concrete, with solid subjects. So you have to know all the face of the phenomenon, of the fashion phenomenon, and to see how the designer, how the house is interpreting what's happening in society. And another thing that I'd like to speak with and to teach, if you want to use the verb teach, is to write, always keeping under your eye the audience you're writing to. Because I'm very lucky, because I began writing for a newspaper and the language was so different for writing for a political magazine, and was so different for writing for a Marie Claire magazine. It was so different for writing for a website, and was so different for another form of communication that could be a social like Instagram. And it's so different, Instagram from Clubhouse, where I had some room in the last days. So I think that I'd like to communicate with the students, with the people, the different way of speaking and writing fashion, the subject of fashion, to different audiences, because it's very important. For me, as a journalist, before a fashion journalist, the most important thing is to be understood, and is to be understood with reason, because I cannot say something that, I don't know, that show was awful, I didn't like it. Say, okay, no, I will write it saying the reason why I did not find that show so good, or so relevant, or so
relevant is a great,
or so relevant, because fashion today knows so many ways of communicating, but you always keep very keep attention to the public, to the audience, you are speaking to, you're writing with even with the images. If I say a personal story, it's very fun because it's very funny because I'm trying to do a new experiment on myself on my personal account on Instagram. Please come to me to my account, and I'm doing since 2 months this experiment called AM, like Antonio Mancinelli, dilemmas. Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
My advert.
And you can see AM dilemmas.
Uh-huh.
Because each Monday, I put one question in fashion to the follower, and the reaction of just one question, very simple question. There was a question about makeup for men or not.
Yep.
There was a question about body positivity. Is a reality or is a marketing? Is a marketing pace
tool? Yeah.
More to become more famous. And I see that just with one question, the reaction of people is very strong. Is interesting. Is interesting, and I think that we have to find a way to speak with people on different platforms. Considering that paper too is a platform today, because I think that print magazine will go on in company of website, in company of social, in company of clubhouse and whatever. I think that we have to know all this kind of different way of communication, because it will be very useful for everyone who want to work in fashion, not only for the journalists, not only for the fashion critic, but for everyone
who wants to participate in fashion. We
Yes.
need that conversation. On
Yes.
that point, I'm going to ask Denise to join us at some point now. So Denise will be looking for some questions now, so we too can have a dialogue. Because I think what you're getting at, interestingly enough, is that journalism isn't about you telling us, you informing us. It's about maybe now having that conversation, so
Yes.
you can propose the question, and we can also give our opinions, perhaps.
I called that horizontal dialogue, because I am on the same level. I am on the same level of my reader, and sometimes, especially on Facebook, we have some not fight, but we have some discussion. So it was very stimulating for me too to know how my readers think. I see Denise is very serious. Denise.
Oh, she looks serious, but no, she's
looks
always great.
I'm not.
She looks like a school teacher.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Fantastic.
They drove
Denise,
me like this. I'm not like this.
Okay.
Do we have some questions, Denise?
Okay, let me check. There we are.
No.
Okay, no question at the moment.
Really?
No, we're waiting. Yes.
Well, that's amazing. Okay, obviously my friend,
Yes,
some of my
that's so
friends
much.
aren't listening.
Okay.
Well, we can carry
Only
on
they
talking
were
a little
arrived.
bit more. But
No,
this is the whole.
Me.
This is the whole point of the conversation, that we want to get questions in any form, whether it's through the chat on social media, or whether it's like people writing into us, because often we get questions on here. I can't always answer all of them, so I then get back to people on email. So if we don't have any questions, that's okay. We can still continue our conversation.
Yes.
That's
Sorry,
right.
I forgot another important subject on fashion today. It's a very pivotal subject. That's sustainability. And it's very important to keep sustainability as one of the pillars of the fashion in the future. So we have lots of new subjects to know and to understand, just to communicate them to the audience, and at the same time to understand if one designer, if one house has well behaved or not.
Yeah, but I somehow I get this thing about sustainability, but for me it should be like breathing. We cannot afford not to breathe. We cannot afford to live in an unsustainable world, never mind a fashion industry, or more to the point, a textile or apparel industry, because everyone keeps talking about fashion is unsustainable. It's not really, it's the apparel industry. It's all the clothing, because it's not fashion as we know it. It's everything we put on our bodies.
Absolutely, and the exception of sustainability could be a lot, because sustainable, it means that you spend maybe a little more for something that is done by a worker who's 18 or older. This is well paid. This is a salary, and for me, is an ethical and moral question. For another person, could be I don't know. The kind of materials, because we use a lot of plastic, too much plastic, and some items they are not biodegradable. So there is so many phases of sustainability that we have to put into. And I think that I know that you have a lesson, a meeting with my friend Ursula De Castro.
Yeah.
About and she's always said to me, repair. She's about long-lasting clothes. So sustainability could be very meaning, as lots of meanings today.
But who isn't? If we're talking about fashion, who throws away the Balenciaga or the Issey Miyake? Nobody throws it away. I have an archive, and I love putting things away and then bringing them out later. It's not also a simple, quick fix like paying people more. Last year, I was very privileged to go to Bangladesh, and I spent a day in a factory, and I learned so much. It was unbelievable. You cannot just pay, in some countries, women extra, because that money would be taken off from the husbands. You can't pay the family extra. That money would be taken off by the landlord. And so factories find ways of giving better opportunities of life to people they employ, so that the society that they live in can't take those benefits away. And it's through giving them education, by giving them better value and better quality of food that they can buy from the factory community. Many different ways they can help women in society without just giving them money, because that money can be taken away. So it's a very complex situation, and we're always learning more about it.
Yes, but to finish with a nice note, a happy note, in this case, I'm really optimistic, because I find that the new wave of consumer, even the rich consumer of, I don't know, 20, 25 years, are asking for that. Sustainability has to be a part. Has to be a part of the items you're going to buy, even if it's very expensive, even if it's coming from a big house. But now it's something that they want, even they can afford a very important expense, but at the same time, they want that items they bought is made by someone who was well paid. That is, they want something with a lot of quality and well made, so it can last. And I saw it in my lesson in some university 10 years ago, 15 years ago. My students came with lots of fast fashion shopping bags, and they were so happy about that. But now, 15 years later, they're doing different speeches to me, saying to me, "Oh, Antonio, I think to keep some money to buy a very good cotton T-shirt, because last time with a fast fashion T-shirt. After 3 times washed, it was completely destroyed. So I think that the new generation of consumer is very, very aware of that. So in this case, I'm optimistic.
I think it's an area that needs to be consumer-led. The consumers can say, this is what I want,
Yes,
and
absolutely.
they can get it that way. We're on any sector of the market.
And not only in fashion, and even in
Yeah.
accessories, even in jewelry.
Yeah.
If you think that Tiffany now, Tiffany is like, it's so important, but they show as a pride, they are very proud to say we are not using no more rubies, because rubies are sold to buy arms, especially in some countries. So they are using a less precious stone called rubelliti. They look like rubies, but they make this subject as as a subject to be proud, and this is important because Tiffany is like a huge name, like a multinational luxury. But at the same time, they want to the people know they're engaged in sustainability in this case, in this field.
I have another friend called Yanni, and Yanni is a gem explorer. This is his webpage. He's like the Robin Hood of the gem world, and he goes around the world finding out what people do with gemstones and where they come from and how people are treated, who are mining them, and the political games that are going on. That's his career. He's an amazing speaker on the subject. Every part of society, everything we buy, has got to be sustainable from every direction. And it just has to be the basic way we're going to have to live in the future without being labeled sustainable all the time. It just has to become to be ingrained in our way of living.
Yes.
Are there any ingrained questions now? Or have people still gone quiet? Have we just said everything?
We have a question which is pretty long. Okay.
Oh, good.
So,
Oh, wow.
yeah.
One, but very, very important and strong.
Yes, it says, hi, my name is German, and starting from the new modernity where the society is changing through the young generation, how can we, the students, stimulate the debate and acknowledge the changes that are going to be present from now in the fashion world because of the pandemic? Gender issues, thank you very much, he says.
Okay.
So, I can also repeat if you want. Read it again. So basically, okay, so from the new modernity,
yes,
where society is changing through the young generation, he says, how can the students stimulate the debate and acknowledge the changes that are going to be present from now in a world in which there is the pandemic? And so he wants to understand how can a student understand this in this particular moment and obviously related to fashion.
The answer is very simple, coming to my license.
That's true.
Attending my license. No, I'm kidding. There's a lot of ways, and the most important thing is, like Miuccia Prada said, study, study, study.
There's actually never been a better time to study than right now.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of quiet, there's less distractions. So I always keep saying we can study better now because there's less distractions.
Yes. But, Adrian, I can understand that now the difficulties for young people is even to distinguish real news, the truth, from the fake news, because we are so bombed from news each day that it's very difficult, even for me, that I'm old, and at the same time I'm a journalist, and sometimes I read too many things, and I think it's very, very difficult to understand what is true, what is not true, what is trusty or not. So the first thing to do for me to say to to answer to the guy, the German guy, no, is find 3 or 4 or 5 sources of news, trustable news, of news that he can trust, and I don't know, not reading news on Facebook, please. And on these sources, the first sources, study and to go deep into things. Because the more you get into things, the more you cannot get imbrogliato. How do you say imbrogliato?
Fooled. You don't get so fooled by the news.
You can get, sorry, you can get fooled by government powers, even great houses of fashion.
No. They always tell the truth. Yeah.
So
is that our one big question of the day?
No, we have another one. Yeah. Okay, we have another question from Luis. Okay. It says, "Hi, I'm Luis. So nice to hear you guys." Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
With all things changing so rapidly, along with the consumerism. Okay,
yeah.
And as well, considering the sea of image we are all bombarded with every minute, and perhaps influenced by a disposable society culture. How you think an emerging designer can find its way through without falling into a disposable or already seen work? Okay, how can you be innovative, basically, as a designer in a world like this?
Okay, may I answer?
You will go first and I'll come second.
Okay. I think that one of the good things of this Milanese Fashion Week was that we realized we had some great, new names under the spotlight, and there were some of them were so good, and the reason why they were so good, it was because 3 of them, 3 on 5, founded their label under the lockdown, during the pandemic. So they had the time to understand and to make and to build their own language. So you can be a good designer if you build your personal vision of the world, your personal vision of the aesthetic, your personal vision of your philosophy, and you have an autonomy in seeing things, in judging things, and it's and one of them, it's called Andrea Adamo. Is a very smart guy. He's 32. Is young for the Italian standards. Is a baby. Told me for the first time in my life, I had time to realize what I really wanted to express. And so their creation were so good and so new, because they expressed their inner world at the same time, an inner world translated into contemporary, into our society. Please, Adrian.
Wow, your answer blew me away. But I would also add on to that, how do you find, they'll want to know, how do I find my personal identity? And obviously coming from education, we always say research. And research, not just fashion, which is this, research widely, have that cultural background and know how to use your research. So it's research, response, and develop ideas that are original through experimentation. And you need time to do that. And that's why I think the lockdown and what we've been living through is giving those new designers perhaps that little bit of a break to start thinking about their own identity and research and experiment and come up with something new. Because what we don't need is just a copy of something else. The world is full of copies. We've seen everything. So please give us something new to inspire us.
I'm absolutely agree. And research, and please don't stop to the next 20 results of Google.
No, and also death by Pinterest. All my students know I hate mood boards. Downloading images, sticking them on the page. There's no job in that. There's no future in that. That's just. I have a nasty word for it, but just don't do it.
I'm not against the web, but please
use it the right way.
Using the right way to go to page 10 or 11 or 12.
Or then
not one, not the first.
You can Google, but then go to the book and check it out in a book. You have to go to other places.
Denise is laughing. It's okay.
Because she hears me saying this
every
day.
time. Yes.
Denise sends me all the portfolios I review for the school, and there's myself and Barbara. We're sending feedback to Denise, and poor Denise has to then send the feedback to the students saying it's lacking research. We've got no sketches. We can't see your process. It's the same things all the time, and she knows I hate. On some student portfolios, I can go through 12 pages of mood boards, download images before I see one briciola, one crumb of originality by somebody's drawn something. I don't know where it's come from. Why must you just download images and think you've actually done something by just putting them on a page and giving it to me? It's a waste of time. So let's just kill Pinterest.
Yes. At the end, we can say, be curious.
Oh, yes.
Be culturally curious. That's what I'm always talking about. Culturally curious.
Curiosity will save the world.
Yeah.
I'm sure of it. And don't stop at the first result, but go further. Don't be never happy with the first answers, because maybe can be the wrong answers or the panel answers. So be curious and study a lot.
Was that our last answer, Denise, or do we have another question?
No, we have others. Okay.
Oh, they're coming in now. Now we've gone over an hour. Now they're coming in. Okay, keep them coming.
The first one who needs to...
They need to warm up. They need to
warm up. Yes, exactly. Okay, so a question is from Elena. Helena says, how can we combine the need to produce and consume less with fashion process? Designers are more aware, but they continue to dictate a new fashion several times a year. Do you believe they are correctly communicating the message they are trying to introduce with their clothes? So this is about sustainability, I think. And
yes. Please, Adrian.
Okay.
Please, it's your turn.
I would say you need to also separate the idea of a designer and also a brand. In the fashion industry, it's run by big brands, and it's about making money. Then you've got the designer who's enjoying being the creative process. It's an industry. An industry has to sustain itself as well by making money. Don't get confused by proposing something new and original, because if our wardrobes have all got everything in there already, we're not going to buy anything else unless it is original. We just need to learn how to use what we've got and only buy originality and newness, and also be prepared to experiment. But at the same time, conserve everything you've got. Remake it sometimes. I've actually upcycled some things and enjoyed upcycling them, taking the sleeves off and reusing parts of it because it was too good to throw away, and my body shape has changed since I bought that item. There's so much you can explore and do, but don't think you've been dictated to. Just look for the newness and don't get confused by the industry having to show something new, because that's what they're being asked to do. Give us something exciting to look at, and fashion should make you dream.
I'm absolutely agree with you. I don't find personally nothing bad in the fact that fashion is business. Fashion is a business. Why not? But at the same time, like Adrian said, our research and designing and design is another thing. So I think we can conciliate. We put together these two characteristics of fashion: to be an industry and to be a creative industry. Yves Saint Laurent said the beautiful sentence: "Fashion is not art, but it needs an artist to make it work. To make it work. So I think that if creativity meet in the right way the financial motivation to earn a lot of money, to make a lot of money, maybe we can find a new third way, maybe earning a little less, but at the same time, we save the creativity. But this kind of change will happen with the behavior of the consumer. I'm sure of it. If the consumer buy less, the industry will produce less. So I think that in the future, we will be much more aware about the use of fashion like a curator of an exhibition.
Yeah.
Personally, I don't know. I'm a collector. I'm a collector of some brands, and I have a shirt of Comme des Garçons, sweaters of Missoni, like this, of 20 years ago, 18 years ago, 10 years ago, because I love that designer. They have a philosophy I share with. So I think the future is about to behave as a collector, as a curator of your personal wardrobe. Your personal wardrobe is your gallery, is your art gallery.
It's my archive. I use the word archive, yeah.
It's the gallery of yourself, because Adrian, you're a masterpiece. You're a masterpiece of nature.
Get out. I have another answer. Actually, you are the answer to the question, because if we listen to you and your informed opinion, we can find new interesting brands, we can support the industry in a different way, we can be an informed consumer by listening to the journalists that have an interesting voice that comes from experience, knowledge, and constant research in the subject. So by listening to people like you, we can be better consumers.
I think that, and we have to improve the local brand, because in this way it's sustainable. You help young people. There's a lot of new names, and maybe in your city and maybe in your country. So there's no reason to have the big logo, the famous logo, but maybe even in this case, it's important to make some research, as you said.
Yeah.
So I think that we can find a third way. Other questions? Oh, wow.
We have two more questions. I think the last one. Okay.
Okay.
So the first I will read is from Crescencia. I hope to spell it correctly. She says, I would like to ask, how has being, it's for Antonio, but however you can answer both. Okay. How has a critic affected your view of your own style? This is nice.
Stop giggling and answer the question.
It's a very tricky question.
Can think about it.
50-50. Because I'm in love with some designer. Even I have not to say that, because a fashion critic has not to be partial. But okay, I love some designer, but I realize at the same time that maybe my body is changing, my age is, I'm growing up, and so I think that I have my personal style, but at the same time I put something new, not because I search for something new that interests me. So I know that my language, my style language, my personal style language is to be a little bit, not minimal, but classic with something twisted, something that it's not right. It's wrong because I found it that reflects my personality. My personality, I'm a very calm person, but sometimes I have strange thinking. I have some. This is my personal language. It's obvious that knowing lots of names and making lots of researches for myself too, in finding new names. But I think that my nature, my personality is always the same, even with some new things. But just when these new things, they really not hurt me, mi colpiscono. They really impress me.
Yeah.
Not because they are in fashion. I hate logo. Absolutely. Personally, I hate logo. If something is done by a good name, by a good designer, it must be recognizable by the silhouette, by the shape. But I don't want any logo on my body because I'm sorry, but my initials are enough. And you?
That's a really good way of putting it. What can I say? I like the way you're saying you're growing up. Unfortunately, I'm growing out. You're lucky to be growing up. I'm growing out. And I'm certainly not growing up as in mentally. I think I'm still quite childlike. I quite like to play with logos because I like to buy things that are unexpected for my image. I like the only wear black, and Rick Owens is my favorite designer. I like all the Japanese designers, but then I like to throw in a bit of Gucci, a bit of Valentino, a bit of the Italianness because that's unexpected with my image, and I like to play around with those things as well. So I think it's important to have fun with your fashion, and exactly what you said, how you go against, you put something unexpected in there, and rather than buying the whole fashion plate. I think the days of buying the total look, for me, well, they never really existed. And I think if you learn how to play the game, it's like literally being a child and you're playing a puzzle piece and putting the puzzles together every day. You've got to make a decision about what you wear. You've got to make a decision about what you're telling the world. Why make a bad decision?
Yes.
Use some intelligence.
May I add one thing, Denise?
Making about two things, yeah.
May I add one thing about this? That sometimes your personal style, for me, in my case, Denise looks very severe, very strict.
My role of to say, moderate.
Was influenced by people I met, not in fashion. For instance, I wore always black in the 90s. Like Adrian today, I had everything was black. At the end of the 90s or beginning of 2000, I don't remember, I met an interview, very impressive, very strong, with this photographer called David LaChapelle. That's very important.
Yeah, amazing.
And he told me, "Oh, you are still dressed in black." I say, "Why? Why not?" And he told me a very, emotional thing, saying, "Didn't ever think that maybe in the 90s all of us were black because it was the AIDS, and we are like ready for a funeral." And this connection with that and that period in the 90s and the 80s, that he said to me, after that I began to add some color, and now I'm full of colors and I don't dress black anymore. But it was not a fashion interview. It was an interview with a photographer, an exhibition. But it was that sentence changed my personal view on my style.
I just want to say something about wearing black, which I could say a hell of a lot about because that's my life. But I don't wear black because of any remembrance of death. I wear black because at the moment I'm doing so many different things about proportion and silhouette. I'm wearing skirts and wearing heels. If I dressed also like that, I'd look like a circus tent. So by avoiding color, I'm actually getting down to the subject I want to talk about, which could be length and proportion and gender, by just using one color. And also my skin tone is so pinky. What other colors am I going to wear when I'm so pinky as a person, between pink and white?
Everyone has.
And black to me came from the 80s anyway, not from the 90s. So.
To weigh in a certain style. So you're perfect in your way. I'm good in your way.
Absolutely. I love color. I love everyone wearing color. It's just it's not going to be for me.
Sadomaso uniform is like a missus or like a dominatrix. It's perfect. Ready to whip someone.
Don't get too excited though.
This is another webinar.
It's another webinar. Actually, if anybody who's left listening to us, if we have anybody left still listening to us, if they've got any suggestions for webinars, please write in. I'm going to do a whole series called Unpicking Fashion, with some fashion designers, some creative directors from Italy as well, and from around the world, looking at unpicking fashion. What is fashion to them? Like talking to you, what is your fashion? I want to go to the designers as well and say, why are you designing it? Let's unpick fashion. So that's one of the subjects I'm hopefully going to explore maybe next month.
Okay.
Any other questions? Yes.
The last one. Okay. It's from Andrea. It says, from the things you've been discussing, do you think to pursue an academic career in fashion is recommended?
What do you mean by academic career?
I don't know. I don't know if it's related to
academia,
okay, or doing like a course in fashion. We can answer both, I think.
Okay. Shall I talk about education?
Oh yes, and yeah.
Well, there are different ways to approach fashion. You can do it through an apprenticeship. You can learn fashion by doing, or you can learn fashion by education. But either way, you need an education. Whether it's a formal education of going to a school, an institute and studying, or if you have an apprenticeship or you're getting work and life experience, you're still in education. So either way, education is the route to everything we do, regardless. Antonio?
I'm absolutely agree with you because I think that to be informed, so to study, but at the same time to know, as I said at the beginning, the more things you know, the more things you study, the more results you will give to your career, to your personal life. So I think that, as Adrian said, that studying and researching and making a culture about a lot of different subjects enrich yourself and helps you in elaborate something real personal. And I think that every one of us, I had mine. I think Adrian had his, and Denise maybe has hers. We need some teachers. I don't know. For my writing, I wrote a lot. The first Italian journalist, and one is very famous in Accademia. The name was Irene Brin, and he was the first journalist. Women were speaking in fashion into society, but it was the beginning of 20th century. So I think that, and I was really inspired by her, like I was inspired by, I don't know, Camilla Sciaderna. She was a journalist that she wrote about fashion, but at the same time she wrote about terrorism and politics in the 70s. So 60 years ago. So I think that every one of us needs some teacher, some icon to so there's nothing bad, not in copy, but in inspire, in having someone who inspires us.
Yeah, we have an issue with the word in education about the word inspiration. Being inspired by someone is one thing. Taking inspiration as a source of designing is not what we like. We like real in-depth research, and we often find inspiration. When students say they took inspiration for design, we find that very light. So we often talk about research, but having people that inspire you is certainly the way to go. Any more questions, Denise? This is our longest ever webinar.
I was asked.
There's a surprise.
Yes. No, we have no more questions.
Okay. I did get some on my phone. Also, Neil Lobo was still on the line, and he's like texting me, but he should have talked to you. Okay.
He hasn't wrote any question.
No, and neither has Albert today. So, okay. Well,
Thank you so
Antonio,
much.
grazie tanto, grazie mille. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. Thank you, Denise.
I'll see you in Milan soon. Hopefully for a gin and tonic in Milan. That'd be very nice. Un aperitivo.
Okay, I'll wait for you. Even if we live in a red zone, as you see.
We're in a yellow zone here.
Yes. And thank you for inviting me. And thank you for everyone who has had the patience for listening.
Listen to us.
Thank you so much.
Grazie.
Bye.
A presto. Ciao.
Bye.
Ciao, ciao. Ciao.